Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bridge the Gap. We're talking all things on how to make fantasy football fun, how to make it fun in the season, out of season, draft, all those things. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring on. He's a former Commissioner of the Year award winner. He's got one of the best podcasts out there, one of the biggest advocates of the fantasy football expos I know. You guys know and love him. It's Dr. Kevin Murray. Kev, how are you tonight?
Hey, man, it's good to be here. I think this will be a fun discussion, which is better than like a political debate. So this is probably a good place to be. If that is too much for you, if you've had enough, I think that people are gonna have a good time tonight.
Yeah, it seems like last time there was a debate, I had a show at the same time as well. So
Smart. It's
Yeah,
an alternative.
so
It's an alternative.
yes, it very much so. Before we get into how to make fantasy football fun, why don't you tell everybody what you got going on, where they can find you, and all that good stuff?
Well, anything from Fantasy Football Unlimited, you can definitely find me there. I love sharing fantasy football resources. Obviously, I host the FFU podcast, which is just, it's such a pleasure to do because, I get to interview some pretty amazing people. We know this fantasy community is filled with great people with interesting stories, a lot of passion for the game, and it's fun. It's fun again, just kind of get behind the scenes and hear their stories and hear about their passion for fantasy, what makes them tick, hear about their backgrounds and all that. So I love doing that, hosting that show. Obviously, you can find me at Football Guys as well, doing some commish content. I'm doing a few Sunday morning lives this year with them. Just doing some start-sit stuff Sunday mornings, a few weekends this year. So it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter or X or however you want to call it at Dr. KJ Murray. You can also find some of my stuff at FF Unlimited. So, and then obviously Fantasy Football Unlimited socials.
Yes,
you can find that stuff there.
Yeah, and so it's scrolling at the bottom. It'll be scrolling on the show, the Kevin's Twitter, the Fantasy Football Unlimited Twitter. I think your podcast is one of the best out there in terms of the way you do it. I was on there over the summer. The way you bring people on and kind of engage them in their passions, where they're at, and what they like to do. It's similar to this podcast where you're not talking necessarily like who are the top waiver wires or that kind of stuff, which are very valid podcasts. But it's it's more of a conversation about the person, who they are, and what they're doing. Something like you and Casey do with your podcast, and I really love that. Your website, the Fantasy Football Unlimited website, I think is one of the most under-touted resources out there because you have a resource page that has everything and really well organized. If you want redraft content, if you want DFS, you want Dynasty, you want IDP, if you want podcasts, if you want articles, it's all really organized. So if you guys are out there watching, after this, go to Fantasy Football Unlimited, check out that website. There's some great resources on there that you can find. So, Kevin, I don't know if you noticed this show, but we like to start every show with a game.
What exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
A classic
Nice.
Would You Rather. And as a former Commissioner of the Year, person who's very much into commissioning and doing that kind of stuff, would you rather both live drafts? So would you rather be at a live draft that is the most extravagant it can be? It's got amazing food, a great atmosphere, prizes, the whole 9 yards, but you're in the draft, but you are also the beer fetcher, the sticker monkey. You have to do all that kind of stuff that usually is reserved for the last place finisher. You have to do all that, but you still get to participate in all the food. But if someone's like, hey, I want a drink, you have to go give hey, go get me a plate of nachos or a plate of whatever the fantastic food is. You have to run and get it. And they're like, draft this person. You're up there back and forth. Would you rather that? Or would you rather participate in just a mediocre live draft? So let's say it's got some, basic food, some like pretzels and some Doritos in a bowl, maybe a can of sodas, nothing crazy, but you don't have to do anything. You just kind of sit there, you draft, you walk up, put your sticker up that say you don't have to wait on anybody. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have the extravagant draft where you are waiting on people and putting the stickers up, or just be in a mediocre live draft where you don't have to do anything?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an easy answer. It's definitely an easy answer. I love the live draft, the extravaganza. I love the spectacle. I love just being in the room of a live draft. It's definitely my passion for trying to set up a special live draft. It's, it's like fantasy heaven. That's what I try to do, with our live drafts when it comes to setup. And I'm used to running the draft board, whether I'm using Fan Draft and doing like the digital draft board, or even putting those stickers on there. There's something, you get an adrenaline rush putting a sticker on the board, even if it's not even your pick. So I'm used to doing extra for my league in my draft. And it might sound kind of corny and cheesy, but the reason why I really fell in love with fantasy commissioning is because I loved the game. At that point, I loved the game so much. And I wanted my friends and family and colleagues to appreciate and experience what I experienced with fantasy. So the reason why we started doing live drafts and try to make them special, it was really that. It was, I wanted to create a great experience for my league because I love these people. Like my home league, it's friends and family from, way back in the day, from elementary school, junior high school. So I've always wanted to just give them the best that fantasy offers. And so to me, I don't mind doing the extra work so that they have a great experience. So give me that live draft with the bells and whistles.
I agree with you. So if you're watching on Twitter, come over to the YouTube at Bridge the Gap YouTube, drop it in the comments what you'd prefer. I agree with you. I think I'd rather have the amazing atmosphere and food. I think me and you are very similar in the aspect of we enjoy serving others and we get pleasure out of seeing other people having a good time. And if that means we have to put in a little extra work, we're okay with that because we know like our extra work is showing off on their behalf and they're benefiting from it. I don't really like being, just even if I was in the other end and I was just in the extravaganza and there's someone waiting on me, I wouldn't like that. It's just not my personality. I don't think you're like that way. I think we're like, hey, let's help out. Let's pitch it when we can. And we want other people to enjoy it. We want people to enjoy the experience because we've lived it and we understand how great it can be and what that does for people. So I agree with you. I would take the ultimate amazing one where there's, amazing food, right? And we're going to have an episode at some point, I'm going to bring someone to talk about food. There's something about food that just is a connector, just like fantasy football. And there's something about when you have really good food and like special food, there's just something about it. That's why you see these stadiums do these crazy food spreads because
for sure
it's just part that adds to the atmosphere.
It's for sure. Food. Sorry, to interrupt, but yeah, food is huge. And one thing I was going to say that made me think when you were talking is that I've done so many live drafts that it's more than just an average draft. So it's kind of a spectacle. I'm used to being busy during a draft.
Yeah.
So when I do a draft where I'm not doing more, activities where I'm just sitting, the amount of time between picks always surprises me. And so that always frustrates me.
Yeah, I realized that with the Scott Fishbowl live draft this year. I live drafted in Madison. It was the first time having the live draft in Madison. And I was the 101, so I picked. And then it was, well, now let me go talk to people. Because I've gone to Chicago last year and this year just to help out. And I really love that aspect of just getting to like not being tied down. Like I can just mingle and I'm an extrovert. And I think you are too, where it's like we can just go around and talk to people. We don't feel like the need of, oh my gosh, I need to do this. I need to do that. It's just like, I'm not waiting. I don't want to wait. I want to be doing something.
Yeah, when you're a helper, I mean, you are the ultimate helper when it comes to fantasy drafts. I've experienced it myself. You saved me once upon a time during the Kings Classic when I was running the draft board. So I can see that we're on the same page with this stuff.
We very much are. So that was my weekly. I forgot to plug in my computer kneel down that I pretty much do every week at this time. And somehow I always forget to plug in my laptop. So let's talk about how to make fantasy fun. Let's start with the basics. What does fun in fantasy football look like to you, Kev?
To me, it's the league experience. It starts with the draft, obviously. I think that's the greatest way to kick off a fantasy league. But to me, like the league experience, when I say league experience, I'm talking about the connections. You always have to have the right people. But when you have the right people in a league that, are capable of making those connections, I think the bonds that are created it supersedes just the game and just the competition, right? Like I think that having a great league, it's a way to stay connected with friends, family. It's a way to make new friends. Obviously, if you're doing public leagues or online leagues or leagues where maybe these aren't people that you grew up with or working with currently, it still has that opportunity to create connections. And I love connections. I love the capabilities of a fantasy league for just keeping people connected and growing relationships. And so I think that's the foundation. And if you have that, then you can make them fun. Again, live drafts, obviously, it's a great way to get people together, kick off the league right. You want leagues that are active and engaged. And if people know each other in the leagues and they live drafted together, there's just a greater chance that you're going to have trades and have more trash talk that's well received and encouraged. Whereas if you don't know somebody and they're trash talking you, that sometimes can go the wrong direction for some people.
Yes.
So you want to know people. So you got to have that live draft as a foundation. If you're not local, well, that's okay. You still can do some online drafts where you go into a Zoom meeting or whatnot, and you get connected that way. But when it comes to that live draft, I mean, it's making it special. It's one time a year. It's a lot of people's favorite day of the year outside of maybe Christmas or a birthday, and a lot of times it's even bigger. And so making it special, whether it's decorations or ceremonies for trophy, with trophies, for the champion, speeches. I love doing speeches and with a podium at the draft, just to make it fun, make it special, make it unique, make it something that people haven't experienced. And then if they have experienced it, take it up a notch. And so that's a lot of times, back in the day when we first started doing live drafts in my league, it was, okay, what are we going to do next year? What are we going to do next year? What are we going to do next year? So always ramping it up, always kind of keeping people on their toes. I enjoy that with my league mates, just trying to, surprise them, bring in something new, so that they're, so they stay engaged and stay interested.
Yeah, I think you hit on a big point. It's the connections. I think that's where I'm at. Like, as an extrovert, yes, winning is fun, but like when you're just having fun with your friends, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I know my best friend and I would just he'd be like, hey, do you just want to come over and peel wallpaper? I'm like, sure. Like, cause it's just fun. Like, me and him would have fun doing it. We'd talk and whatever. Like, that was just fun. We'd just be like, hey, do you just want to come over and listen to a record? Like, yeah, let's just do it. And you can have fun doing whatever if you have the connection with the people you're with. That's a big part, I think, of what fun is for me, is that connections. When we talk about like the Fantasy Football Expo, that's all about connections, and that's what makes it fun for a lot of people. Is you get to connect with the people that are your people, that think the same way you do, that are into the same stuff that you are. And that's a big part of making anything fun in life, is having a connection with people, right? I can go to a movie and have fun, but I'm going to have more fun if I go to a movie with someone else who wants to watch a movie. I can go to a football game and have fun by myself, but it would be more fun if I go with someone else and have a connection with someone over that. So I think that's huge. So let's talk about the draft. You talked a little bit of this, but like making the live draft fun, where does that start? What's something people can do to just take their live draft up one notch, right? I think a lot of people have live drafts and they get together and they maybe order a draft board, but like, what are some things? What are one or two things that someone can do just to make it just 10% better?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it too, because not everybody's going to do everything at once,
Yep.
and it's not practical. It's not realistic. Even for myself, it was scaling up each year, trying to add new things. So at the very basic, if you're used to just kind of getting together in a room and having a draft board, I would make sure you have a trophy, right? Any awards, it goes a long way when it comes to just adding another element. Something people can look forward to, a little award ceremony, with a little podium, and whether you make it, you just put it like a tablecloth over a desk or over like a nightstand or something. I mean, you can create a podium somehow, but getting up there, having a speech, great place to trash talk. I've done it a million times where, you get up there and you could definitely rib your league mates, just from the commish standpoint, which is fun. But trophies, get a trophy, smack trophy, get yourself, something to fight for. I think that a lot of times, the trophy's a symbol of the winning, of the dominance over the league. So it's nice to hold that trophy as champion. It's pretty spectacular. And I'd say anytime you have a trophy celebration ceremony, you get a like a confetti popper on top of that.
Wow.
I mean, it adds some cleanup, but it's fun. And I've witnessed that before when it comes to just, recording that happening. The amount of times I've created GIFs, myself or other league members that have won championships. And it's always a great way to hit your league, later down the road when it comes to some trash talk, is to remind them who the champion is. So get yourself a trophy, get yourself a confetti cannon, and have a good time.
Yeah, you brought up two things. The confetti cannons or those little poppers are inexpensive, but the value they bring is huge because that does just add a certain level of like pomp and circumstance to it that just is, yes, it is some cleanup, but like
Yeah.
it's fun. And you
Yeah,
brought up speeches, and I never thought
sorry,
about speeches before.
Yeah, well, I think it's huge. I think that some people might not like to public speak, but that's also a fun way. You put them up there, you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth, but these kind of things create memories. Anything that creates a memory is special, and I think that that champion, they deserve some of that experience of just being on top. And so the confetti works. Again, make sure you're recording everything, whether it's speeches or the ceremony like that, because it goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, speeches are interesting because I do think like as a commish, you can give a speech, like almost like a state of the league, like here we are
Yeah.
another year, and you can add in some jabs, like a little bit of a roast on your league, but then you let the winner, like the championship from previous year, give a speech, like kind of like the valedictorian at a graduation. Like I think that's really fun because if you won last year, you have all summer to plan your speech. Like you should have that. Like a winner should have that down, and they should
For
take
sure.
pride in that. I think for me, what I look at a live draft, and I think what makes it fun is if you're commish, or even if you're not, is to delegate some of the work to other people.
Yeah.
And I look at like food. So if I'm the commission, I'm like, hey, we're all gonna meet at my house. But hey, Joe, do you want to make a dish? Like, do you want to make wings or do you want to make something? 'Cause I think that allows people to have a little bit of ownership to it and allows them to bring something like, hey, I brought the wings and people like I brought 100 wings and they were all gone in the first like 3 rounds. People just loved them, or I brought that crazy dessert or whatever it is, or I brought that really expensive bottle of booze and we just, did shots and everybody had a great time. Like whatever that is, I think when you can delegate that out, if as commission go, hey, do you want to bring, a dish to pass or do you want to do something? I think that's fun. If you're not commissioned your league and you're listening, I think what you need to do is reach out to your commission and be like, hey, what can I do? Or just throw out ideas like, hey, can I do whatever? Maybe you are the confetti popper person. Like you buy them and you just pop them whenever. Maybe you're the one who sources prizes for certain things. You come up with certain ways of adding that in. I think that's fun. Trophies are fun. I love trophies. And one of the leagues I was in for a couple years that I loved what they did is they started out with just a small, little trophy they got from like a yard sale. But the stipulation was every year when whoever won had to add to the trophy.
It's great.
So eventually it was someone added a bigger base and then someone added like made it into like a lamp and someone else added like more lights. It just became, and I think that's really fun because I think that adds a little bit. So like if you're looking for something on the cheap, like just go to a yard sale or go on Craigslist. You can find cheap little trophies for $1. Go to your Goodwill, and then just say, hey, every year when you're going to add something, right? And depending on people's skills, they might add something. Someone might paint it. Someone might add lights. Someone might add a base. Then they go, I added that part in blah blah blah, and you can kind of keep a record. So that's fun. I do think, right, an in-person draft, I think we all agree is the best. If you have to do a draft online, what do you think? Are there some ways that you can make an online draft more fun?
Well, yeah, you can always, up the ante a little bit. Again, any type of like, Zoom meeting where you get everybody on video, it
Yep.
helps. It helps. But one thing, you can do before the draft is just make sure you're doing stuff before the draft when it comes to league events. Sometimes, if the off season kind of goes, no one's connected, you just do an online draft. It is what it is. It's not as, not as personal. That doesn't kick off a league very well, right? Whereas
No.
if you're going to determine draft order in some way, in the off season, there's ways to kind of put things together to help determine draft order. What I've done for many years in the past was we would do like a bingo lottery, right, for draft order, and we'd hold that like a week before the draft. So, I would do that on video, right? So it's just an event. Any events you can have before your draft, it gets people excited for the league. So if you can't have that live draft where it just naturally, creates excitement for the league, doing things proactively, creatively in advance of the draft will at least get people excited about that league. In today's world, a lot of people play in multiple leagues. You want a league that stands out, that is a little extra special, so that people are more engaged in that. Otherwise, if they're not doing well in that league, they might not pay attention because they're paying attention to the league they're in first place in, right, or in contention.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a league that has a lot of extra perks, a lot of extra fun. No matter where you're at in the standings, you're going to be paying attention because you want to know who's what the standings are, right, in a league that you care about. So the key really is making sure that there's reasons for people to care extra about your league or the league we're trying to spice up, because then you get the most out of that league experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like for an online draft specifically, like step your meme game up, like your memes and gifs, like
Yeah.
those need to be. I think trash talk is even more important when it's all online, right? Because I
Yeah.
think that does bring people into the draft. Like if you're doing, I think Zoom is a great or whatever Skype or whatever kind of telecommunicating thing you do is like, but if you're throwing gifs in there and memes and you're just like busting people with that, like me saying like, oh, that pick sucked versus me
Yeah.
dropping a meme of like the guy like doing the thinking like whatever it is like it
Yeah.
invokes that, like people get that and they laugh and then they're gonna be more willing to join in and they can we all use memes all the time. It's real simple for I think people to join that bandwagon. If it's different, it's like me and you are bantering with text. But if you're bantering with memes and gifs, I think it allows people to jump in because they can just throw a random meme or gif in and then it just becomes like this ongoing.
Yeah.
That's what I say for that. You talked a little bit about the off season because I think that's an under talked about part of making fantasy fun. And I said this around draft time that your live draft or your draft shouldn't be the first or the last time your league talks or communicates or gets together in the year. You talked about like determining draft order, like doing a lot. Like what other things should we be doing in the off season to ensure that we are not starting things with the draft, that it's just a continuation of a year?
Yeah, it's tricky. Again, it really kind of depends on the league dynamics. If you are local, it gives you the chance to go golfing or to have barbecues or do family events together. Whether it's it doesn't have to be the entire league, but you want to stay connected with different members of your league. So if you have a chance to be local and connected, well, yeah, I mean, there's just so many different things you can do together that keeps people connected. I will say that when we're talking again about like a live or an online draft, you might have a couple members of the league that are local or together, get together, even if it's an online draft, having small groups get together. Or if everybody in your league is spread across the country, have a couple buddies over while you're drafting, just to make it fun, right? Like, whether they're, trash talking other people's picks or, they're rooting you on or giving you advice or getting in your ear, just trying to make the draft experience fun. It just helps connect you with the league better. But yeah, again, with off season, it's really just trying to figure out ways to stay connected. And I think draft order is a great way to do it. With most just traditional redraft leagues, a lot of times it is just a random draw of some sort, whether it's, Yahoo or ESPN or Sleeper, determine a draft order a minute before. Anything above that is better. So, if you put together, I think one great idea is just take the entire off season, pick a few events. You can take the NCAA tournament, you can take Kentucky Derby, you can take, the NBA finals or NBA playoffs. You can take a few different events, have tournaments, within the league, everyone fills out brackets or whatnot, and then have, a series of events result in either the entire draft order or the selection of the order of the people selecting where they want to draft, or even if it's just one prize, like you have this off season schedule of events that the one winner of that entire contest is the one person that gets to pick their draft position, and then everything else is randomized. I think it's really trying to just kind of think like, how can this league stay connected? What can we do in the off season? Let's play some games together in some ways so that we're, more than just, playing fantasy together. We're doing life together. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like doing life together and finding other ways of staying connected. And I think, right, most people who play fantasy football aren't just football fans. They're going to watch other sports, whether it's Kentucky Derby or baseball or NCAA. Everybody watches and fills out a bracket for NCAA, right? Whether it's wrestling, whatever those things are, like find a fun way of incorporating that. I mean, it could be something as stupid as, a dog show, right? Like Westminster Dog Show. Like you can find ways of just, making it fun. I think you're right. Like doing life together in the off season will just help make your league better. Now we are in the part of the season. We are headed into week 5. We're at the part of the season where I think some people are feeling disconnected, disjointed, like they're feeling out of it. They're 0-4 or they're 1-3 and they feel kind of like, and the season kind of sucks. I'm kind of over it already. Like I'm burnt out by all the injuries and the chaos. How do you make your league fun throughout the season? How do you make it so people are engaged and incorporated? How can someone else make their league more engaging and incorporated? What are some of my tips and ideas they can use to make the in season fun? Because the draft is obviously fun,
Yeah.
and we're talking like, hey, do these events before, but like it's hard to do events when you have football every week. How do you make the in season fun for people?
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite questions because I think it gets to the heart of, again, the foundation of fantasy. From my perspective, it's that league experience and those bonds. This season's a perfect example, right? We got chaos, right? You got injuries, you got things that are happening that you just did not predict. If you spend all your time with your, enjoyment of fantasy focused on the standings, you can get burnt out, right? Especially if you're taking on too many leagues. Like people, I don't want to see people quit fantasy because again, I see the benefit that can come from fantasy, but it's hard to get burnt out if your focus is on the wrong thing. Obviously, if that's what your focus is, winning prizes and trying to be in first place in every league, I mean, I get that, but you also want to have a great appreciation for the league experience. So you got to keep people engaged, whether you're a commissioner or you're trying to inspire your commissioner. There's definitely things you can do. I think that one, you obviously have to have some type of group chat, whether it's on a text thread or some type of app, where you stay connected, because you have to have that chatter. Otherwise, people are going to be chattering in another league and lose focus on your league. Power rankings, classic way to do it. You can have a commissioner that just puts out their own power rankings each week. They don't have to be objective. They can be very subjective, and it's a great way to trash talk and make fun of people. So, and if the commissioner is too busy, you got 12 people in your league, hopefully 10, maybe, 14 leagues, those happen. But rotate. Each league member has a week where they are doing the power rankings, and it's a great way to talk trash and have fun. So having power rankings, just making fun of teams, or again, if you have some objective, analysis and you want to break down why you think this team's the best, do that. And you can do that in a newsletter. You can do that, on a text thread. You can do that, through an email. You can do that through video, which I think is the best, right? Video power ranking. That's something that I used to do a ton back in the day. And so I did that year after year, and it was fun. It was good. But you get to a point sometimes as commissioner where people maybe might tune you out because, they think that you're just going to say you're the best team. So what I did, this is kind of off the wall, but I created characters, right? And that actually was inspired, by reading Fantasy Life, where there was a part in Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life book where they talked about, he was telling a story about a league that had a fake insider, right? It was like a fake Adam Schefter for a league, and no one in the league, except for the person that did it, it was basically a Twitter account for this fake insider for the league. And for multiple years, like the guy would, provide content, feedback about the league and kind of troll league members, and no one knew who it was. And so I was reading that book, this was years ago, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know what I need to do? I need to create characters, because I've been doing video stuff and having fun with that. So I created a bunch of different characters. I got wigs, I got glasses, I got different characters that all pop on every once in a while and just do like a power rankings from this, this random character. And the league members have absolutely loved it. It's like they're their own people. Like I when I look at these characters and I see video of it, it's almost like I recognize that person. It's not me. So that's an off the wall deal. Not a lot of people are going to do that, but that's one way that I think is a ton of fun, right? That'll shock your league members for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that power rankings, whether it's doing, creative characters or whatnot, great way to do it. But you got to just keep that chatter going. So like you said, memes, GIFs. That's why it's good to take footage from your draft and take, embarrassing footage of your league mates, turn those into GIFs and keep rocking those, because I think that makes it fun. And if your league is fun, people are going to stay more engaged.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think doing video and doing characters is huge. Power rankings is a great way of doing it. And if you're like, I don't have time, there's AI. I'm sure you can find a way of an AI that'll do it for you. That'll, print out everything, you send it out. I think you're right. It doesn't have to be objective. It can be subjective. But I think you gotta make sure you balance out. Like, you can't just trash talk one person the whole time. You gotta make sure you're hitting everyone, including yourself.
Sure.
I think that's huge. I'm a big proponent of having weekly prizes and
Mhm.
weekly things. So if you take, I was in a league and we had, it was like $25 to get in. Basically, we $5 every week, and we had this rolling list of random things. So it'd be the most, we called it like the sticky bandits, most running backs with the most, receptions, or we did like the two lowest scoring quarterbacks, right? Just to
Yeah.
kind of give someone, they win a little bit of money, like $5. But, everyone like almost most of the league walked out winning something at the end of the year. It was just a fun
Yeah.
way of doing that. Things like that really help keep people engaged. I think it's way of, giving. I think there's other ways you can keep people engaged, whether it's not just the straight standings. So maybe do the top 5 make the playoffs, and the 6th one goes to the highest scoring team.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
ways like that
Yep.
where it's not all record based, because we all have had those bad beats where you're the highest scoring team and you're the second highest scoring team and you lose the first highest scoring team multiple weeks, and we've had those, and we've all been there. I think that's fun. Cameo is a great way of doing
Hmm.
trash talk, like, and it might cost you $20, $30. Like, you can get a decently known player, especially for your hometown team, for inexpensive, and they can come on and just tell them what to say and trash talk someone.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way. I think having that insider, like that fake Twitter account, is really creative. Having characters are creative. I get that everybody's gonna be able to do that, but I think finding ways of doing something like that is fun.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had a
Thank you.
league for the I've had a league for the past 2 years that's reached out to me and goes, "Hey, would you do?" The commissioner reached out to me. He was paying me to write basically a power. I rate like a paragraph of each team. Like, this is what I think their team is. Here's some moves I think make. Here's where they're lacking. And it was just, his league loved it. And I was like, if you guys love it, I'll do it. It's fun. Like,
That's
okay.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I
I've
just,
done that for a couple leagues before, where I did videos for other leagues.
yeah,
Just some random guy coming in and breaking down their league, and it was a ton of fun. But yeah, I like that. Be creative. Cameo is great. But yeah, just something off the wall that surprises your league members. It goes a
yeah,
long, long way.
yeah. I mean, reach out to some of your favorite fantasy football analysts, right?
Yeah.
And be like, hey, would you come on and just like one week just roast my league, or like, run it down and see what's up? Like, that's fun. Let's talk about last place loser punishment. We'll get to this in a little bit, but are you a fan of last place loser punishment? I know the answer, but I want the crowd to hear. Are you a fan of last place loser punishments?
Yes, I'm definitely a fan of them, but I also absolutely understand there's a large spectrum, right? You
Yes.
you want to you want a punishment that fits the league and is
Yeah.
welcomed in the league. Pushes the boundaries maybe a little bit in your league, but just some conservative group or some simple, league is not going to do a last place punishment as a tattoo, right?
Yeah.
But there are people that might work
And they'll
for.
do it.
So, but yeah, I'm definitely a fan. There's some just aspect of it, shaming that last place member, manager, it goes a long way, just creating a little more fun. And also competition wise, I mean, you don't want to be last place. You want
Yeah.
a punishment where you don't want that last place. You'll do it, but you don't want
You
it.
don't.
So you're going to fight a little harder, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think that's when we talk about last place punishment. I'm a big fan of them as well. Is you want something that people don't want, but they're going to. We don't want people just like phoning it in after 6 weeks because they're 0-6. Man,
Yeah.
I've seen things where it goes the other way, where you go, hey, the 4 teams, it's in a 10-team league or a 12-team league. Like, the teams that don't make the playoffs, whoever wins that loser bracket gets to pick their spot, or gets the 12 team gets like the 1-13, whatever that might be, to kind of incentivize it. I think anything you can do that it helps your league kind of stay engaged throughout the year and be competitive. And so they're still active on waivers. They're still trying to make trades. And I think we didn't talk about this much, but the connections you make with your league mates that aren't fantasy related, so doing life with them, will help you facilitate trades. And we're going to talk trades
Yeah.
probably next week on the show. But if you want to facilitate trades, you can't just reach out to someone when you want to trade. Like, you need to reach out about other things, like, hey, how's your life going? How was your daughter's recital? How was this? How was that? And then they're more willing to work with you, because you're not just coming to them when you need something. You're coming to them all the time.
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit more, like, if you could tell someone came to you and said, Kevin, what do I do? My league is, we're 4 or 5 weeks in, my league is stagnant. What would be your like number one tip for them to get a league that's stagnant back going?
Well, I think you brought up a good one, just like a cameo. Just if the league that's not used to activity, not used to, being engaged, just find a funny cameo appearance,
Yeah.
just to bring in some insulting trash talk. That's fun. That could wake people up for sure. But then I would, once you did something to kind of, jolt them and get them, hey, like this is a fun league. Then I would do like the power rankings and deliver it in whatever way you can, right? I think that you know, something funny, something fun would be good. Like you said, I love what you said about weekly prizes, because a lot of times people do that and they just do like a high points, which is fun, but not everybody's got a team that can actually get that high point.
Okay, yeah.
So I like what you said about having a different marker each week to become, the prize. Small
Yeah.
prize, but it keeps people a little bit more engaged. So if you can implement that now, that'd be great. It's probably not likely if the budgeting is already set for the allocation of funds. But let me see. I think that there was something I was just thinking of that I think would be good, in addition to kind of just throwing out power rankings and just starting something like that. Oh gosh, it escapes me. But yeah, any videos, extra meme, like special memes that you just, I think a lot of times it's just surprising people, kind of hitting them from the outside. They're not expecting it, but it just creates a little more fun. I think anything like that is good.
Yeah, and I'll say with the weekly prizes, like maybe it's not always financial, but let's say you want to implement a lottery system, right, for your draft order next year. Maybe the weekly prizes they get an extra ball, right, in the lottery, right?
Yeah.
So they increase their odds because they won this weekly prizes. I do think with the weekly incentives and prizes, you have to mix up between the good and the bad. So you want those teams to just have crappy teams, like hit them a week
Yeah.
where it's like the lowest scoring quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like that person wins because then like even though they had a crappy week, they might still win something. I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. It doesn't always have to be financial. It can always be something extra. Maybe it is, if you guys are going to do a live draft next year, maybe it is like they win a beer, right? Like,
Yeah.
like someone has
Yeah.
to buy them beer, whatever it is, like they get a beer coupon or something. Just something where it's a little something, a little token to keep them engaged. They feel like they've won something that week. Maybe they didn't win their matchup. And I will say, I think there's this avenue, especially for leagues that are long time running leagues, is some sort of legacy pot or prize, which I think we've heard a little bit. Like you talk about these Empire leagues where $5 of every entry. It's like a $50 entry fee, but $5 from each entry goes to an Empire pod, and it's like you have to win back-to-back championships or you have to be the highest scorer 3 years in a row. I think
Yeah.
that's a fun avenue to explore with your league because I do think it adds an element of, hey, I want to come back, right? If you win one year and you one year you're going to win this extra $100, like you're going to be more engaged, but also people are going to be a little more engaged because they don't want you to win it. So I think
Yeah.
that's another way of like building that intensity and engagement, even though it's not this year, it's to stop someone next year.
Yeah, for sure. Another one would be like like the low point,
Yep.
person each week having to do something, whether it's create a little video where they have to,
Yep.
do something embarrassing. Or I know Trophy Smack does a lot of fun stuff where they have a lot of different prizes that are different items that are like,
Yep.
$20 or so, where they'll
Flags and
they'll
singlets.
yeah. Like, so every week, someone has to pass one of those around or something like that. So coming up with some way to shame the lowest score of the week in a creative way, in a shameful way, is fun.
Yeah, if you're in an office league, like maybe you get the ugliest mug you can find, and the low score have to use that mug at work for the week, whatever it is. Theoretically, if you play 12, 13 weeks of the season, the low scorer every week can be 1 month of a calendar, right? Like they just have to take it a bit like, so you could
Yeah.
have your whole league in this calendar, and every month's a new person from a low score, week 1 through 12 or 13.
I
It's a
love
fun
it.
way of doing it. So, any other thoughts before we move off this topic of ways that people can make fantasy fun?
Well, yeah, I think the key is it's endless, right? There's no limits to what you can do. It's just a matter of
Yep.
creating, being creative and thinking
Yeah.
outside of the box. And, obviously looking around your league and kind of seeing how it's made up and who's in it. And, that might kind of shift you when it comes to, what theme or whatnot might be
Yeah.
appropriate for that group.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, if you're not the commish, don't wait for your commish to do this. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the commish to do it. Anybody in the league can make the league fun. And I think it's even more enjoyable when someone who's not the commish, like, pitches in and goes, hey, I'm going to take this over, and I'm going to do power
Yeah.
rankings. And, just help out your commish because, I look at commission as we're stewards of the leagues. Like, we're not the gods and we don't rule the league, but we're there to steward the fun and steward the process
Yeah.
and make the league run smoothly. But it's so much more helpful when someone else in the league steps up and takes some burden off it. So don't think you have to be the commish to do it. Step up and step in where you can and do what you want and throw ideas out there. Like throw it out to the league. Be like, hey, I was gonna do, what do you guys think about doing something for draft order next year? What do you think about doing a weekly prize? and see what they say. And I think you can start the conversation there. And that just starts the conversation rolling. If you're in a stagnant league, just asking the question and shooting out in the group text or this, the Slack channel, whatever it is, I think that'll get some interest rolling, and then you can kind of go from there.
For sure.
So we got one last topic. We are going to do a new segment here called Hit Me With Your Best Shot.
Hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
I love it.
Kevin, I want you to hit me with your 3 best last place punishment ideas.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit you with 3 that I think are great and something that people can do. Like they're realistic punishments. They're fun. They're good.
Yeah.
So we'll go with the last place punishment where you obviously you got to get dressed up, whether it's a last place t-shirt or a costume of some sort. You got to hit that. You got to hit that street corner. You get that shame. Whether you're holding a sign. We personally in our league, we got that Trophy Smack last place. I suck at fantasy football flag.
Yep.
Last 2 years, we did Buffalo Wild Wings 2 years ago. We did Dave and Buster's this last year. So
I saw that video.
Yeah. So on this one, you basically have to kind of roam through the establishment with that flag. You're wearing either again a last place T-shirt or an outfit or some sort. You got to do that. That's one. Doable for sure. Fun.
For sure.
Next, let's go with just a grotesque monstrosity of a trophy, every imaginable color. 6 foot tall. I did this. We did this. My daughter and I made this trophy together, and that has to sit at the last place manager's home. In a visible spot during that next season. So. You got those 2 options. You got the the parading with that last place flag and the walk of shame, or you just got to hold this trophy for a year in your living room, or you got to host a lemonade stand, right? Again, dressed up to whatever degree your league thinks is appropriate, and you got to raise money for your league, which is great, and it brings up an important factor is that to make a league a lot of fun, sometimes there are some expenses, but there are definitely ways you can generate some revenue to go towards your draft party, or a lot of times in our leagues we always have last place, or we have championship banners, right? You got to pay for those, right? So raising some funds, right? You got a lemonade stand, you're getting embarrassed, it's definitely going to be decked out with your people are going to know that you're last place in your fantasy football league. So you got to run that lemonade stand. You got to raise some money for your league, and you got to be shamed that way. Which one do you like?
I love the lemonade stand. I think that's really creative, a way of creating ways to bring in revenue into your league to help make your league more fun. Now, the lemonade stand, would you make it you have to do it for a certain amount of time or until you raise a certain amount of money?
2 different ways to do it, and that's the great thing about all this. It's flexible, right? I think there's 2 different ways. Yes, you can have a certain time period, raise as much as you can during this time, or hit this threshold. The problem is if you got to hit that number, if you don't hit that number, you could turn into a Waffle House where you're there for 24 hours. So whatever works best for your league, as well as for I guess the realistic, the neighborhood. Like, what can you pull off?
Yeah.
Can this lemonade stand be successful? Well, then make it a financial deal.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way, because you're talking about doing these fun things, like having a trophy, getting a banner, those do cost money. There is some cost, but this is a great way of basically empowering your league to raise that money for you. So I think that's a great idea. I'm always a believer in you have to do a set at an open mic comedy night. I think that's my favorite last place punishment. I literally had a guy tell me he would quit playing fantasy football to do that. I don't think it's that hard. You can steal material. No one's going to know or care. And I think it's fun. It's a great way of if you're all if you're all local, you can go, you videotape, you kind of have a good night out. You go, that person's embarrassed for 10 minutes, then you get to watch, another hour of people doing comedy that's hopefully funny. I think that's a fun way of getting you guys all out for one night. Go to a comedy club that has an open mic night. I think that's fun. I'm over the Waffle House. 24 hour. To me, that's just, I don't know. I consider Waffle House it might suck, but it's not it's a time thing. I think there's those things where where it's a time suck, I think those aren't as fun for me, because when you're oh, you have to get on a bus to some city and then come back, okay, that's just, you're forcing me to take time by myself. I get solitude is not everyone's thing, but Okay, I'll just get a book and read. Like, I don't. Something
Yeah.
hard. I want something that's like meaningful, that's impactful, that's short and quick. Short and like the lemonade stand can be. If you say 4 hours, that's fine. That's 4 hours. You sit outside. Like, oh, if you
Yeah.
do, you're outside for 4 hours. Oh, poor you. Um, I like those things where it's memorable for the league and not just for the person. I want
great.
something again that I think that's part of it is that this punishment should rally the league in this sense of laughter and enjoyment
Yeah.
at this person's suffering. Now, obviously, the suffering has to be within reason. Like, you can't be like, "Hey, you got to shave your head." That's not okay. Like, unless the league really wants to do that. I mean, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
like the tattoo leagues are beyond me. I think that's what a punishment should do. That punishment should be something that all but one of the members laughed at the time, but then eventually all the league is laughing at down the road. So it's like we watched the video of this person, right, in their crazy outfit on the street corner. You're watching this person, you know, you go out and lemonade one year and it takes you 5 hours to get to $100. I go out and do it in 2 minutes. Well, then I can make fun of you because I did it faster than you. Like, I think there's a way of it should be everyone's laughing at some point. The whole league should be laughing about this punishment. It should be something that again pushes the boundaries enough where you don't want to do it, but you will do it if you get there.
Agreed.
So-
And a little some side bet action can always happen, on how long is it going to take them
Oh,
to
yeah.
make their first $20,
And I think you're right. I think you have to you can't implement something that someone in the league doesn't want. I think you have to, gauge your league, see what they're interested in, see what they might do. I think anything that is, I think you're right. Those side bets, I think that's kind of like a legacy thing where it's like, this is what we've been doing for the past few years. And you can kind of have all the pictures of people at the lemonade stand over the years. I think that's fun.
I love it.
Kevin, thanks so much for coming on talking how to make fantasy football fun. I think it's a topic we don't talk a ton about. And I think you are very good at, inspiring people, finding creative ways. I think you talk a lot about, community and connecting with people. That's how you make fantasy fun. So before we get out of here, tell everybody one more time where they can find you and what you got going on this season.
Well, yeah, again, fantasyfootballunlimited.com. Great resource for fantasy. If you love fantasy, you want to find resources, right? A lot of the, tons of pages on there linking to other content creators and linking to resources out there in fantasy for me that I didn't know existed once upon a time. And so I think it's cool to discover new resources, discover new analysts, meet people that maybe you didn't know existed. Learn about them on the FFU podcast. This is a great place to do it. But all that is really about just kind of, getting people more connected with fantasy, falling in love with the game so they can get the most out of it. So if you love commissioner stuff, I got a ton on there when it comes to draft order ideas and last place punishment ideas and, engagement ideas and, ways to, create funds in fantasy leagues. So a lot of stuff for the commissioner for sure. And you can, again, find me on Twitter or X at Dr. KJ Murray or FF Unlimited and on the other FFU social media pages for sure.
Yeah, and who do you have coming up on the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast? Anyone coming up?
Joe Bond is next from
Nice.
Fantasy Six Pack. Yep,
that should be a real good one. So I look forward to those episodes when they drop. I'm like, that's a good hour. I'm going to sit there and watch that episode. So I look forward to them dropping. Well, thank you so much for coming. If you guys are watching, please hit that like and subscribe. We appreciate it. If you're listening on Spotify, leave us a review and drop a comment of what last place punishment you want for your league. If you have one, or if you're thinking of one, something you want to do, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Continue this conversation once the pod ends. This is Bridge the Gap, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Bridge the